Folks are often asking me how to become an excellent herbalist, how to learn to work with the herbs in a therapeutic, medicinal way in service of self and community without buying into these shallow reductionist models of pop herbalism, but how to really get into the deep spirit of plant medicine, how to learn. One question that never comes up that I think should come up more is, what does it mean to be an herbalist? What is an herbalist? So when we think about the practice of herbalism through the application of medicine, of healing, of taking care of ourselves, our families, our communities, of course, education is fundamental, and I've already done a lot of videos on what I think it takes to learn herbalism properly, some ways to think about it, some resources and all of that. But I think equally important to where to learn, how to learn, who to learn from is, what does it mean to be an herbalist? When you have decided to take on that title, or more appropriately, when the community around you sees the work that you're doing and is benefiting from what you are doing, they start giving you that name. They start calling you an herbalist because you are embodying herbalism, right? What does that look like, I think, is just as important as where do we learn. So, two parts of this. The first is the ethics of herbalism, that I think a good herbalist is somebody who is doing the work for the right reasons, right? They are doing this work because maybe they are truly called to it, that no matter what they do in their life, they keep getting pulled back into the path. The plants are like vines growing around them and pulling them in, or that it's a heart-centered desire, a heart-centered calling and interest to bring this kind of medicine and education and wisdom to the community, but by doing it appropriately, making sure that we are making our medicine and our wisdom and experience as accessible as we can to people. Of course, we have to make a living and we have to charge for things, but accessibility is important. Trying to meet folks where they are, meeting people halfway, understanding that compliance is the biggest obstacle in herbal medicine, getting people to take the herbs. The herbs can't help you if you don't take the herbs, type thing. And really, for me, I think that folks that have a clinical practice or whatever the situation is, when you look at the herbalists who are doing the most good, the most amount of work, that they have the most reach, they're the ones that look at themselves less as a clinical practitioner, or even look at themselves less as an herbalist and more as an educator. They're the ones that are spending as much time teaching classes, educating people about why herbalism is valuable and why we should be centering plant medicine work in our healing and wellness journeys, as they do, making tinctures and making teas and selling products on Etsy or whatever. Herbalists are essentially educators, and I think that when folks that want to be herbalists, want to embody herbalism, look at their work that way, first and foremost as educators, and second as providers of remedy and consultation, it leads us more efficiently down the right path, because we realize that we're stewards of plant wisdom, and that our main job, regardless of how it manifests, is to inspire people, right? Is to help get people into connection with plant medicine work through education. So that's one part of it. And it's all very important. But what I want to focus on is this other part in this class. And I'm sure this is going to come up again down the road in other classes, and maybe if we have some discussions in the comments below. But I think that what is an herbalist is best defined by the definition of herbalist itself, the way that I see it. And this is something that I've been taught by the plants And this has been reinforced year after year after year of my work in this realm, in this green realm, in these green arts. And that is, an herbalist is somebody to whom the plants have revealed their mysteries and continue to do so. So an herbalist is not somebody who graduated from an herbal program, that went to Taiwan and studied classical Chinese herbalism, or did an online program here, or went to a weekend intensive, or has self-studied for 20 years. That doesn't make somebody an herbalist. An herbalist is not somebody with a great memory who can go through materia medica and monographs and memorize things that each herb is good for. An herbalist is not somebody who's fantastic at formulation and can do good remedy that is broad spectrum and settles well in many different types of bodies, many types of temperaments. Those things don't make you a good herbalist or an herbalist at all, in my opinion, because there are people who have no connection to the plants that do those things really well. So it sort of proves itself. To me, an herbalist is somebody to whom the herbs themselves speak. The herbs have taken this person into their confidence and have initiated them into the wild green mysteries, and they speak to them. They speak to them through inspiration, through dream, through revelation and green gnosis, and they don't let that person get very far from them, because when the plant spirits find somebody who can listen and chooses to listen, they really value that, and they draw us in and lock us down, right? That would kind of become theirs in a certain way. So an herbalist, to me, is somebody who, regardless of how they're doing the work, they could be doing clinical herbalism or formulation or making products or writing books or teaching classes or doing herb walks or gardening or whatever. At the end of the day, they are somebody who the plants are speaking to. They are learning, yes, from schools, yes, from books, yes, from teachers, yes, from apprenticeships and all of that. All of that is crucial and important. I talk about that in other classes. But most importantly, they have learned how to learn. They've learned how to learn from the plants. And now, with all of the foundational education that's there, they're able to learn directly from the plants that make up the practice of herbalism, right? That all makes sense. When we break this down and think in terms of, when we're doing herbalism, what is actually happening? Well, we're acting as mediators between the green realm and the realm of the human person. And an herbalist is a go-between. There's somebody who is able to jump the hedge that separates the world of the plant spirits from the world of the humans and go back and forth to bring medicine and information and initiation between these two different spaces. So it makes sense that because we're human people serving human communities, that we also need a sense of dual citizenship, that we need to be able to jump that hedge and feel just at home with the plants and able to communicate with them and learn from them and have them give us what we need to carry back into our own world of human drama, right? So an herbalist is somebody to whom the plants reveal their mysteries, reveal their secrets. They tell the person how the plants should be worked with whom, how, why, when, where, what, all of that. I've said this part before too in other classes, but I think it bears repeating that I also believe strongly that anybody can call themselves an herbalist. This is not a regulated profession in the States anyway. And so somebody could read a book on herbs and say, I'm an herbalist, and put themselves in a position where people will trust their wisdom and their experience and their abilities and be vulnerable with them. And so it doesn't mean much, right? Like anybody can call themselves that at this point and kind of demand the respect that comes with it. We don't see that with other professions. Somebody can't just wake up one day and read a couple books or go to a weekend retreat and say, I'm a mechanic, and go work in a car shop fixing cars appropriately. Like, it's just not going to work out, right? But we can do that with herbs for some reason. So I really like the idea that our communities give us the title of herbalism. And this is actually the old way. When we look even at early modern wort cunning practices throughout England and herb craft folk in that greater part of the world, we see that it's not that the person necessarily chose it or that they stepped into it and said, this is what I'm going to do, but that they were doing what they did, and people sort of naturally just came to them and said, oh, this person's really good at working with plants for broken bones or for fever or for childbirth or whatever. And basically the community themselves affirmed that person's ability to be an herbalist, to have the mysteries of plants revealed to them. So the cool thing about that is we never have to worry about it, right? We don't ever have to have the conversation that lots of people have asked me over the years, like, when do I know that I'm ready to be an herbalist? When do I know that I can go into practice, or put herbalist on my business cards or whatever? You don't have to know. You don't have to worry about it. Like, there's no point where you have to decide you're ready, because we are working for the plants in this job, right? We are, again, go-betweens between the plant spirits and the human people. And so we allow the plant spirits to tell us when we're ready, and we allow our communities to tell us when we're ready. So we don't have to stress it at all. It just happens organically, and suddenly the medicine you're giving people, or the community classes you're doing at the public library, or something you wrote, or a video you did on YouTube, clicks with people, and it gives people the power, the gravity, right? And says, okay, this person is really holding space for this sacred art. That's an herbalist. And it just happens around you. Of course, people can call themselves an herbalist. They can really call yourself whatever you want, and nobody's really going to check that. Other than that superior herbalism, I think there needs to be some proof in the pudding, right? That I see a lot of people calling themselves herbalists, and I don't see them doing any work. I don't see them doing the work. I don't see them showing up the way that since time immemorial we've seen herbalists show up. And elder herbalists in this country and abroad, it's funny because when you talk to them, they can see it from a mile away, right? They've done so much of the work that when they see somebody kind of just waving the herbalist flag, they'll go, that's not what that looks like. You'll get there, but you're not there now, and that's okay. It's a journey. Herbalism is not an event; it's a process. And so, none of this is meant to discourage anybody. Hopefully, it inspires you, right? That we get to take a lot of the fear, a lot of the stress out of it, and realize that we're working for the plants, we're working in service of our communities, and that those two groups, for us as go-betweens, and specifically for people who are practicing the style of herbalism that I talk about, a spiritual herbalism, an animistic herbalism, a soul-based energetic herbalism, people who are doing allopathic reductionist stuff, they should speak for themselves. But people that are doing it this way, we're go-betweens between these two worlds, and so these two worlds will affirm our work. And I think that's fantastic. We don't have to worry about it. And it also reminds us that we will always be students. We will always be learning. You will never, if you live to be 500 years old, you will never meet all the plants. You will never know all the medicine. You will never go on all the journeys. You will never learn every single thing that the green realm has to teach you. And it does help to keep a person a bit humble, right? That, 20 plus years in, I can walk into my shop, I can walk into my workshop, and I can walk into my garden and say, I don't really know anything at all. There are days that sense of not knowing is a little overwhelming, and I have to pep talk myself out of a downward spiral because it is massive. We're not dealing with an art or a science that can ever be mastered. I talk about a lot that I hate the term master herbalist. And when I meet people who call themselves master herbalists, I immediately know we are not on the same path. And it's funny because one of my great teachers, Paul Barrel, wrote the Master Book of Herbalism, for which I gave him shit on a regular basis. But herbalism cannot be mastered. When something is mastered, we have to ask who's the master and who's the servant in that relationship. And in herbalism, it would imply that the human is the master and the plants are the servants, supporting this human-centric, human exceptionalist idea of nature, which is bullshit. And so there's no mastery, right? And that ruffles some people's feathers, but actually you just have to change your perspective and settle into it, and it's very comforting that there's no end game here. There's no period on the end of the sentence. There's nowhere to get. It's just something we embody. It's a practice. It's something we do. It's something that you might do one way for 10 years and then start doing it a different way because you get to a point where your practice can change, where the plants can deepen their work with you and deepen their work through you, right? So, a bit of a tangent or two on this one, but hopefully it's been helpful. This question's come up a couple times lately. I've been a few folks that have done some online herbal programs or done some apprenticeships, and they're like, hey, I have a good solid foundation, but now what? I'm still feeling off about it. And I think we spend so much time talking about how to learn herbs and not enough time talking about what is an herbalist. What does that mean? So hopefully this is inspirational to some people and gives you some ideas and some things to think about. If you have questions, send them to me or comment below and let's talk about it. I think this is a really cool topic, especially in the world of instant information, instant gratification we live in, where pop herbalism is happening. Herbalism is going through a bit of a renaissance right now, and again, as a non-regulated practice, which I also think that it needs to stay non-regulated, because the minute plant medicine is regulated in the way that nursing or acupuncture or whatever is regulated, is the minute that folks who are learning plant medicine through indigenous lifeways, through the teachings of their grandparents, through the teachings of their communities, those people will be the first people that get shut out from being called a true herbalist, right? So these ideas of registered herbalist and master herbalist, I toss that stuff out. I don't want to see it. And with that, I will let you go. If you want more access to our courses and advanced classes, come join over on the Patreon. We're doing all kinds of cool stuff over there. And I look forward to seeing you at our next Friday community class. Take care.